Food bank lines stretching around the block in Mississauga. Ambulances sitting outside packed emergency rooms in Ottawa. A young couple in Toronto staring at a rental listing for $4,000 a month. And while people were too busy trying to survive, the Ontario government was systematically dismantling the very laws designed to protect them. Late-night legislative sessions, omnibus bills nobody had time to read, retroactive law changes that erased transparency itself. The Greenbelt was the test. The FOI changes were the cover-up, and Bill 5 is the guarantee that the next time, they won't even need the cover-up, because the oversight will already be gone. By the end of this video, you'll see the pattern. Welcome back to Guts.Clout.Carnage. My name is Siphon. It's that time. Get your coffee, get your water, get your OJ, stay hydrated, sit back, and let's get into it. If you live in Ontario and you feel like you're working harder just to tread water, you're not imagining things. The data proves it. The question isn't whether things are getting worse. It's whether it's by accident or by design. Let me walk you through the evidence and you decide. A province in distress. Ontario's own independent watchdog, the Financial Accountability Office, says this province has some of the lowest per-person program spending in the entire country, including among the lowest per-person funding for healthcare in all of Canada. Their 2025 budget analysis warns that projected spending growth, and I'm quoting, is not enough to maintain current service levels. Translation: fewer funded hospital beds per person than we have right now. That's why you hear stories of people waiting for over 40 hours in emergency rooms. Life satisfaction. Statistics Canada. Ontarians report the second lowest levels of life satisfaction in the entire country. Second lowest. Only Alberta ranks lower. Cost of living. A single person in Toronto needs between $3,200 to $4,000 a month just for basics. The average home price fluctuates around 1.1 million. A generation is being priced out of its own future. This isn't a vague feeling of decline. It is a documented failure. The question is, was it by accident or was it by design? The Greenbelt is a betrayal that told us everything. The first real test of how far this government would go wasn't a policy debate. It was a land grab. The Greenbelt, 2 million acres of protected farmland, forests, and wetlands surrounding the greater Toronto area. The Premier gave repeated assurances he would not touch it. Not touch it. August 2023, the Auditor General releases her report. The 2022 decision to remove 7,400 acres from the Greenbelt was, and I'm quoting, not transparent, objective, or even necessary to meet the province's housing goals. The government's own housing task force had already said a land shortage was not the cause of the housing crisis. So why remove the land? The Auditor General found the process was heavily influenced by a few well-connected developers who stood to see land values skyrocket by over $8.28 billion. 14 of the 15 sites removed weren't brought forward by impartial civil servants. They were brought forward by the housing minister's chief of staff, who had received the information directly from the developers at an industry event. Some of these same developers had attended the Premier's daughter's wedding events. The government was forced to reverse its decision. 2 ministers and 2 senior staffers resigned. The RCMP launched a criminal investigation, still ongoing after more than 2 years. But the Greenbelt scandal wasn't just about land. It was a brazen test of how far the government would go in favoring private interests over the public good. And the answer was far enough to try, far enough to get caught, and then far enough to change the rules so they never get caught again. Real quick, before we keep going, if you're starting to see the pattern, drop a like. If it helps more people in Ontario find this video. And for those who need to see it, share this with somebody in this province, your family, your friends, anybody who's been feeling this and couldn't put it into words. Leave your thoughts in the comments. I actually do read them. And if you think this is just politics as usual, make your case down in the comments. I want to hear what you have to say. If you're not subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button now, because we do this every week and you don't want to miss what's coming next. So let's get back into it. Now, the legislative bulldozer, bills that rewrote the rules. The Greenbelt was, like I said, the test. What came next was the blueprint, Bill 23. The More Homes Built Faster Act. Sounds great, right? More homes built faster, except critics called it what it actually was, a handout to developers. The bill slashed the fees developers pay to municipalities. Fees used to fund roads, sewers, community centers, and parks. The Association of Municipalities of Ontario warned this could leave towns and cities short by $5 billion, a cost passed on to property taxpayers. And the environmental gutting, Bill 23. Bill 23 severely weakened the role of Ontario's conservation authorities. It now prohibits municipalities from asking for their expert opinion on anything other than a narrow scope of flooding and erosion issues, effectively slicing the environmental oversight. Bill 39, the Better Municipal Governance Act, introduced strong mayor powers, allows mayors of certain cities to pass bylaws related to provincial priorities with the support of just 1/3 of their council. 1/3. That means 2/3 of locally elected representative can oppose something and it still passes. That's not democracy. That's a workaround. These bills weren't about building better communities. They were about centralizing power, sidelining local and environmental concerns, and shifting the costs of development from private builders to you. That's not just policy, it's structure. Now, the secret switch, the quietest power move of all. Ministers' zoning orders, historically used rarely, for emergencies. They allow the housing minister to unilaterally approve development, overriding all local planning and public consultation. No debate, no vote, no input. The Auditor General found that from 2019 to 2023, this government used MZOs 17 times. 17 times more than in the previous 2 decades combined. 17 times. And many of those orders benefited developers with ties to the governing party. That's not streamlining, that's a literal backdoor. And when a government uses a backdoor 17 times more than the governments before them, it's not an emergency. It's not an emergency tool. It's the standard operating procedure. The FOI change, rewriting the law to avoid accountability, basically. April 2026, the Ford government just lost a court battle that would have required the premier to release his phone records related to the Greenbelt timeline. The court said, be transparent, show the records. The government's response, they didn't release the records, they passed a new law. Tucked into a budget bill, rushed through with a late night debate, they retroactively changed Ontario's Freedom of Information Act and Freedom of Information laws, all to exclude records from the Premier's office, cabinet ministers, and their staff from public access requests. Faced with a court order to be transparent, the government rewrote the law so they would never have to be transparent. Reddit's response was immediate. A thread about the FOI freeze hit 951 upvotes in days. Top comment, 551 upvotes. It said, is anyone surprised? He doesn't want anyone catching him with his hands in the cookie jar. Is anyone surprised about that? Another comment was that reached 215 upvotes. If you have nothing to hide, why are you hiding? The Merit Styles thread suggesting Ford could face prison hit 4,225 upvotes. Over 380 comments, and the top one was, think of the things we know, and then imagine all the things that we don't know. That's the trust, it's gone. Not because of one scandal, but because when they were ordered to be honest, they changed the definition of honesty. Now, Bill 5, which is the latest play, Bill 5, which is the Protect Ontario by Unleashing Our Economy Act, passed and received royal assent in 2025. It creates special economic zones, areas where the provincial cabinet can bypass environmental assessments, override local planning, and fast-track development with virtually no oversight. EcoJustice, one of Canada's leading environmental law organizations, launched a constitutional challenge. They called them lawless zones, law-free zones for the government's, quote, trusted developers. First Nations communities have raised alarms that the legislation allows the government to bypass critical processes that safeguard species at risk, cultural heritage, and treaty rights. The pattern is now unmistakable. Greenbelt try to hand land to developers, get caught, change the FOI laws so you can't get caught again, then create special economic zones where the oversight you bypass doesn't even apply. Each step makes the last one look cautious. That's not a government responding to problems. It's a government building a system where accountability is structurally impossible. Who pays when billions in potential land value from the Greenbelt are handed to a few developers? That's money that isn't going to build hospitals or schools. When municipalities lose billions in development charges because of Bill 23, they're forced to choose between raising your property taxes or cutting services. When environmental protections are swept aside, it's future generations who will pay for flood damage and the loss of natural spaces. And when the government makes it drastically harder for you to see what they're doing with your money and your land, the cost isn't just financial. The cost is democratic. The cost is the ability to hold power accountable. And once that's gone, it doesn't come back through election. It comes back through fight. This isn't about left or right. This is about a government that was caught serving private interests, and instead of correcting course, built a legal infrastructure to make sure they'd never be caught again. The Greenbelt was the crime. The FOI changes were the cover-up, and Bill 5 is the guarantee that the next time they won't even need the cover-up because the oversight will already be gone. Don't just look at what's gone. Pay attention to what's changing behind it, because the surface always looks the same until we're seeing how it doesn't. And that's just how I'm seeing things right now. I want to hear from you. Do you live in Ontario? Have you felt this? Do you think the pattern is by accident or is it by design? Drop it in the comments. I read all of them, and if you enjoyed this episode, like, share, comment, subscribe. Every single one of those actions helps this channel grow, and I appreciate every one of you who's been rocking with Guts.Clout.Carnage from the very beginning. More is coming. This is Guts.Clout.Carnage. My name is Siphon. Take care of yourselves and peace.